And we're back on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. Jonathon Howe alongside my co-host for this year, Beef.
What's
We
up?
also do the Dirt Beers podcast. We're rocking our Dirt Beers merch right now, actually. Maybe one day we'll do Sods Pod merch. We've talked about it in the past. I don't know. We'll talk. We'll talk about it. If
Yeah.
there's interest for that, you can let us know in the comment section or reach out to us as a message to us. So first things first, let's do a little bit of housekeeping for everybody. At SODS_POD, that is where you find all things Southern Ontario Dirt Show on all the social media. We're going to work on posting more clips, both of the podcast and of actual stuff from the racetrack. I did a little pit walk, grid walk on our Instagram story, and it was up on we did a little pre-race post as well. I'm gonna hopefully have a couple of photographers sending me some posts as well. So we'll throw those up on the Instagram throughout the year and make some reels and all that sort of fun stuff. I also want to take a brief second out. As some of you are listening probably know, as some who may not, I recently had my dad pass away. Thank you to everybody who reached out from the Merrittville community and from the racing community at large to say their condolences. I really appreciate it. It was just good to be back at the track at Saturday, right? At the end of the day, like, everybody goes through their things differently, and however you choose to do your stuff is how you do yours. But for me, being back at the track and being with my racing family was very therapeutic, very nice. So appreciate everybody who's reached out and said some kind things, and it didn't go unnoticed, just so you know. Last bit of housekeeping stuff. If you've been enjoying the audio version of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show, I want to remind you we do have a YouTube channel. Again, there's going to be more clips and things going up there, so check that out. And if you were an audio listener, you probably have seen some Dirt Beers podcasts in your audio feed. That's going to change real soon. We're going to have its own Dirt Beers designated feed coming up. It probably won't launch this week. It'll probably be next week. We're working on it with Spotify and all the people that do the distribution side of things. Once that is set up, we will let you know. So watch for the socials. But if you have been enjoying Dirt Beers, hey, come and follow us there as well. We are talking all things kind of North America, national racing at large with the World of Outlaws, with High Limit, with the Super Dirt Car Series. All that sort of stuff can be found over on the Dirt Beer side of things. Plus some really cool interviews and awesome guests. Beef, you've been doing such a good job with the growing of the Instagram. I gotta borrow some things from you for sure. I don't know if I'm gonna fully copy you with like the captions like you do on the photos, but the way you've grown that page is really exceptional. So shout out to you and all the hard work. And hopefully, if you enjoy this podcast, you'll enjoy Dirt Beers on its own, and you'll stick around for us at the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast as well. Later on this episode, we're going to have Cory Turner on. We're going to do a bit of an Oshweekend preview. I talk a little bit about the 360s. Beef, there was a tire rule that Cory talked to us about that I had no idea was coming down the pipeline for the 360 sprint cars. So that was really cool. Stick around for that at the back half of this episode. But let's start with opening weekend at Merrittville Speedway, where I was on Saturday night, as were you, working on the old MBR Mud Turtle. That's right. Mike Bowman back in a modified, buddy. How does it feel? How to be to working on modifieds again?
I mean, I can't say it wasn't nostalgic or fun. I mean, that's where I started, so it was good to get back and see some familiar faces in the pit area and see some racing that I grew up watching. So it was very cool to get back out again and start things off on the right foot, by parking the 71 in Victory Lane.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. I got to pat myself on the back about that because there was a few folks I talked to pre-race, and I was pretty high on you guys winning. I think I told multiple people that the 71 was my opening week pick to win. I thought it was just Mike being back in a modified. It just was it wasn't quite meant to be, but it was too easy of a pick on my part. Obviously, I had to go with Bowman to win, so that was fun and lots of speed. How did it feel from the pit side of things?
It felt good. I mean, we didn't really do a whole lot change wise. We got the car pretty much where we wanted it at the shop. Unloaded, was pretty good in hot laps. Had a couple little things, just comfort things we adjusted for Mike, and then started on the pole in the heat race. Won the heat race. Went out, started third in the feature, and I think he passed. I want to say he passed Brad on lap 17,
Yeah,
16,
something like
17,
that.
around there.
Yeah, checking
But
over my notes.
yeah, so I mean, being completely honest with you, we did jack the car up and change the right rear tire for the feature. That's all we did. So Mike did the rest behind the wheel, and it was definitely fun to get back up to victory lane at Merrittville.
Yeah, that was super fun. For those who missed it, or maybe weren't in the pits or in the stands, Bowman wins it over Gary Lindbergh, Brad Rouse, Justin Sharp, Freddie Carlton. Your top five. Now, I for one was pretty high on Justin Sharp post practice. Obviously, testing tune, you can only take away so much from it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Justin finished with like the fastest lap of the night, but just consistently the amount of speed it looked like he could carry in that 8S.
Yeah,
I gave me a lot of encouraging signs that he could be a top contender. Obviously, Gary Lindbergh, our defending champion, found himself in a bit of an incident at one point and still found a way to drive back up to second.
yep.
Pretty impressive stuff. Altogether, though, kind of a messy night for the modifieds.
Yeah, a lot of cautions. I think there's maybe 6 or 7 cautions. Just a lot of guys, just being a Gary, him and the 42 get tangled on the back straightaway.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the 42 and the 74 get tangled on the front straightaway at one point.
Yep.
Just a lot of different stuff happening, and I don't know if you chalk it up to first race jitters for everybody, or just everybody knocking the rust off, or what. But I can't say that the division before went green to checkered, so it's kind of hard to say, like
Wasn't a
what
racetrack thing.
no what was
Wasn't the
really going
surface.
on there, but yeah, good to see the sportsmen go green to checkered, no problems.
Yeah, you mentioned those sportsmen. Green to checkered. Cody McPherson win number one on the year after kind of a hell of a 24 hours. Not
Mm-hmm.
sure if you saw this beef, but he was at Outlaw the night before. I think finished third, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Then on the trip back, got a flat on the trailer at
Yep.
1:30 in the morning. Didn't get home till 4:30. And then, was quickly up and turning the race car around to be at Merrittville Speedway. And Cody, of course, finds a way to get it done. Brett
Yep.
Senek, he was pretty fast at the end there. Maybe it would have been interesting to see if there was a caution, what Brett might have had for Cody. Dan McKay finishes third. Jeff Benante, Boyd McTavish round out your top five in that one in the Sportsman. And again, a pretty clean race, especially for the amount
Yeah.
of youngsters in that series. Great start to the year for the Sportsman. Yeah, you got to love that.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, I was honestly surprised to see Dan McKay up in third at the end of the race. Not that he hasn't had speed before, but just good to see the 13 near the front. But yeah, sportsman. I mean, green to checkered. You can't ask for anything better than that. Uh, I think you're gonna see. I can't say. I mean, you can't say for sure that we're gonna see another dominant year from the 7 car at Maryville, but I'd like to see a couple guys, get that sneak by, get that win. I would really love to see Little Chev get a win this year. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, it's going to be hard to beat the 7 car.
Yeah, I got a couple prop bets we're going to get to later in the show that I'll run by you in terms of maybe number of wins that we'll see from certain guys this year. Obviously, the 7S or the Lucky 7 is going to be a part of that one
Yep.
for sure. Now, moving on to what is now the third third to last division of the night. The Mod Lights are going to be going third, right in the middle, smack dab in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Something that we had, Dan Curving on. He talked about the growth of that class. They've definitely
Yep.
earned the move up in the night. Plus, the other thing, too, with those Mod Lights is that with a bit more of a packed down track after the Hoosier Stocks, we should anticipate a little less airtime for these cars. Hopefully, knock wood, at Merrittville in 2025.
Yep.
The surface should, play into a better time for them. Now, as far as the race itself goes, you had Josh Slider have some speed. Dan Curving was obviously really hyped on Brent Bigelow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think he had a bit of a motor issue. I know
I
he still had
believe
a pretty
so.
decent run, but that particular race car didn't seem right, like it was running right at all at any
No,
point.
it was not.
Brent did still finish fourth, so
Mm-hmm.
good points night overall for him.
Yeah.
Like I say, Josh Slater had his issues, so he finished towards the back of the pack after being at the front for most of it. But in
Yeah.
the end, Tyler Winger starts 25 how he ended 2024 with a win
Yep.
at Merrittville Speedway in the Mod Lights ahead of RJ Pitts.
Yep. I think Tyler's gonna be the guy to start taking these races to Josh and Brent, honestly, at Merrittville. I think you see the 4 car in victory lane a lot this year, and I think you see him contend for a championship.
Yeah, you know what? He's such a solid dude. You know, like kind of a family operation. Doesn't seem like he's got like a ton of money behind him or
Oh
anything
yeah.
like that. He's just there for the love of the game, and I'm happy to see Tyler be one of those guys. I was really encouraged, obviously, with what we saw from RJ Pitts. He had a strong
Yep.
end to 2024,
Yep.
and seems like he's picked up where he left off. And Sean Iftati with a podium finish, finishes third.
Yep.
Brent Beglow, I mentioned, finishes fourth. Anthony Kelly finishes fifth. And yeah, ultimately a pretty solid field for the Rona Deutsch Mod Lights this year at Merrittville Speedway. It's going to be fun to watch them in that class. And again, if you missed out, Dan Kervin gave us a great breakdown of everything to do with that
Mm-hmm.
class on our previous episode of the podcast. Go back and check that out. But yeah, you mentioned Tyler Winger. I really do think could it be his year? It's too early to say. I haven't seen enough. Like I got to see that Brent Bigelow car, that Savage Race Chassis 16. I got to see it at full song
Mm-hmm.
because, again, like Dan kind of hyped it up. Like I don't want to say I was sitting here expecting Brent to wipe the floor with the field, but that kind of feels like what we might be setting ourselves up for once Brent does get all the bugs out of that race car
Yeah.
and is ready to run, right?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you can't deny that he has speed in anything he gets in. So if he can get a car that's running right and running properly, it's hard to not bet on the 16.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the Hoosier stocks go, Jason Fontaine picks up the
Mm-hmm.
win. The Fonz, great battle between himself, Rob Murray, and Mark Fawcett. They finished 1, 2, 3. I don't want to give the hard luck award away already, week one, but I don't know what. Like, there are some great rivalries in sports, but there might not be a better rivalry than Mark Fawcett and the timing and scoring line at Merrittville Speedway. I have never seen a guy like it's not funny and it hasn't been funny because it has cost him victories where like when you look at the actual Tim Hortons finish line where the flag stand is at Merrittville, Mark has been a nose ahead, but
Yeah,
that's not where the timing and scoring
that's
is. It's
where that
about
is.
5 feet ahead of it. That's
Yep.
where the electronic timing line is. And again, Mark got burned, just barely losing out to Rob Murray for that second spot. Uh, Unbelievable that it keeps happening in that 32 car, but
I know. Yeah, it's just an ongoing saga. You could write a book about it, but yeah, I mean, obviously hard fought battle. I did catch the last probably 10 laps of that race, and it was just a battle all the way to the end. So it's always good to watch that. The Hoosier Stocks always put on a good show, and it was nothing short of that.
yeah, Kyle Pelrine, Spencer Smulders round out your top five there. A name we didn't say that we're pretty used to saying seeing at the top of the leaderboard in the Hoosier Stocks is Dave Bailey. He had I can't say for sure it was an engine, but some kind of major
Something.
mechanical failure. He was spraying for skeeters on night one, and it was way too cold to be doing that.
Yeah.
So tough break, but championship favorite Dave Bailey in the hole after week one. Does this really open the door for maybe the most competitive championship we've had in the Hoosier Stocks in a hot minute?
I mean you can't base it off one night. If he were to miss maybe another week or maybe 2 weeks, I would say definitely. But I think he slaps a new whatever it was transmission or motor or whatever happened in the 49, and we see the Dave Bailey that we know with the 49 up front again.
I think so too. I mean, he's too good not to, but
Yeah.
if you're Fontaine, Rum Murray, and Fawcett, you got to be loving what you're seeing already to have a little bit of a cushion, a little bit of a head start on the guys.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Always
uh,
nice.
and then we'll take it over to the All Star Concrete 4 cylinders. Rob Goulding gets the win there ahead of Dave Winiger, Mason Anderson, Ken Hare, Alex Riley. That is your top five there in that division. I'm just noticing that on my little article that I wrote up. It cut off the rest of the field for the All-Star Concrete
Oh,
four-cylinder. So I'm going to have to go back and do some editing here and fix this up. But I don't know why it cut me off there. Apologies. Bit of a disjointed weekend anyways in terms of all that sort of stuff. But
yeah,
as far as the mini stocks go, pretty good race. A couple of different drivers get out ahead at certain times, but it started with some chaos.
yeah,
We had a flip early on. Sierra Robinson, who was having a great night, I believe won a heat, which I'm trying to check that, but it's already been cut off from where my article is. So,
really.
unfortunately, yeah. So, but I do believe Sierra won a heat or was in contention for a heat win, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. And that's part of the reason that Sierra had the track position and was
Yeah,
up there. And I think when the flip occurred, Sierra was running like fifth. Like
yeah,
the wreck happened towards the front of the field, and it was
yeah.
a big one. And my question to you, Beef, is this a product of maybe too many cars? Because the mini stock field is pretty jam packed these days.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like the mini stocks, it's a different kind of racing. It's not they can beat and bang and smash into each other, and usually it's all good. Just keep going. But yeah, I don't know. It all depends on where they got hit and where they were going. Like, did she get hit and was just had the wheel turned and just caught an edge and the car went over, or what? Or if it was maybe just a four wide deal and she just had the shit end of the stick on it. But
Yeah.
yeah, hard to say. But I mean, I believe it's her first year in mini stock too, so it to go out your first night and flip, it's not always the best, but
Yeah.
I guess get it out of the way early, right?
Yeah, I think she got some starts later, second half of the year last year, maybe
Oh, okay.
ran most of the year last year, but like vastly improved. Like in
Yeah, yeah,
terms of
yeah.
pace, in terms of everything we saw, that 1 hour program in general looked pretty stout on the opening night up until that flip. So
Okay, yeah.
tough break there. But what about the idea? And I heard a few folks, kind of volleying this back and forth, but double features for the mini stocks. I'm pretty against this
Yeah,
myself.
I'm
Like,
not a fan.
yeah, I don't think double features should be for anything but a rainout.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. It's double features just keep you every nowadays. You're trying to run a show as efficient as possible. You're trying to get people in the gate and out the gate as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Running an extra feature, I just don't think it makes sense at all. Um, if anything, I don't know. I can't. I don't know. I can't tell you what the answer is for that, but
No, there's not
uh,
really a better solution than the old B main, A main that we've got
yeah,
going right now,
yeah.
in my
Like
opinion. But
it is like it. I mean, it's harsh, but it is what it is. Like you don't make the feature, you don't make the feature. Load it up, try again next week. It is what it is.
and I imagine too for some folks that are guys who don't have the biggest budgets or the craziest programs or anything like that for mini stocks, when you can race your way in through a beat, it's got to feel good. So,
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to be taking that experience away, because if you're somebody who, you're never going to run top 5 in a heat or top 10 in a heat or something like that, depending on car counts. I mean, that is your Super Bowl. That is your night. Making the
yeah.
show and getting paid is a cool thing. And there's a lot of drivers out there who will do whatever it takes to make the show at the end of the day for their partners and their team and everybody involved. So
Hmm.
I don't want to see that go away. I
No,
really
yeah.
think that's good. Okay, well, continuing with the Merrittville theme here, Beef. One race already in, so we kind of have a points picture, so to speak.
Yep.
But let's do some year-end predictions. Let's go back and forth. We'll start with the modifieds. I'll give you first pick. Who do you want for the championship?
Hmm. Mod champion. I gotta pick Gary. I gotta pick Gary.
Mm-hmm. It's tough to pick against him, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, it's the only car that I see being upfront enough to be able to hold the points lead, and that's going to be there all year.
yeah, like I'm going over the list here, and obviously you're going to take Gary. That's the obvious pick, but like I look at who's in the top 5 in points right now behind him. Like obviously we know Mike is on a part-time schedule. He's not going to be running for points in a modified.
Yeah.
That's fine with us. It's still going to bring a lot of entertainment, and there's going to be points on the board that he can steal away from
Yeah.
guys. Now, Brad Rouse, this is what, year 2, I think, in the modified, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, right?
I would be my second pick if Gary wasn't there. So
I mean, the guy knows how to win a championship, right? At the end of the
yeah,
day.
100%.
But I just keep coming back to Justin Sharp. Like, I think there's something to that race car this year.
Yeah.
And I'm not sitting here saying that on a week-to-week basis that Sharp is somehow a favorite over Lindbergh. But I'm just saying, of the guys who are, I feel like, are maybe in the prime of their driving career, who have good equipment, who have already shown speed and have experience, I just feel like there's something special about that 8S that he could maybe take that fight to Lindbergh. The one guy, too, that I'm going to take Sharp as my pick, but the only other guy that I think maybe we're not talking about because he had kind of a bad opening night, some kind of mechanical failure, was James Friesen. JMF might be the play. That might be the pick.
JMF is quick. I just, my concern with JMF is how many races is he going to finish out of the top 10?
Yeah, it's possible, right? I mean, the Merrittville modified, just the field it's no joke, right?
No,
like you had Nelson Mason finish 11th this week. Todd Gordon was 12th, right? Those are guys that are going to be in the top 10. Jacob Dykstra had his issues, but that 5D had pace and had speed. There's no reason to believe that 5D is not going to be up there. Scott Wood, another one who had issues, who's probably going to be up there in the top 10 pretty regularly, right? It's a deep field.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I got some faith in JMF, but my championship pick, since you have Lindbergh, I'm going to go Justin Sharp.
Okay.
I'm going to go, since you got the obvious pick in the modifieds, I'm going to take the slam dunk pick in the sportsman. And I'm obviously going to take Cody McPherson. So, Beef, I ask you, if somehow McPherson falters, who could be the one to step up and steal that sportsman title?
You know what? Sportsman, eh? Give me Matteo Panente.
I like that pick. Didn't have the best opening night. I think he was one of those drivers who kind of started towards the back of the field and didn't quite get the track position that he needed to go and race. But we saw what Matteo can do late in the year last year. Picked up a win, one of the only 2 drivers not named Cody McPherson to win in the Sportsman at Merrittville. I don't hate that pick.
Yeah, I gotta take. I'm gonna take the 99 Junior. I mean, he definitely showed speed at the end of last year. Consolation pick. I gotta pick my buddy Tyler Petulski, but I know Ty had his 2 wins last year, but I don't know if he can keep the consistency up to win a championship. But my pick for the championship is definitely Matteo if Cody's having an off year.
Yeah. That leaves Hoosier Stocks, and you get first pick over there. So
Hoosier Stocks. I mean, if he gets an engine back in that car, I'm taking Dave Bailey.
I mean, it's tough to beat. I don't know. I don't want to say like one race is a massive hole or anything, but
it could be he loses by 1 race at the end. You know, you never know.
Well, it may not even take 1 race, right? It might be, like he's dash 30 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to sit here and say that there's drivers who are poised to upset him. Obviously, Jason Fontaine comes out, gets a win early. That's great to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know the 1J sometimes can have mechanical issues. Driver that I've seen too much towards the front to ignore as of late, and always seems to bring quality equipment that can get there throughout the year. I got to pick Mark Fawcett. If anybody's going to upset Bailey at this championship, it's Fawcett. Now, again, I will say that we're making all these picks. We haven't heard officially. These are all just kind of, I guess, guesses as to who we think is going to show up each and every single week and go for that championship. Because there's some drivers who do decide to take weeks off through the summer, or they've got family obligations or whatever.
Yep.
But assuming Mark Fawcett can find a way to show up to every single show, I really think that Mark Fawcett is your guy.
Yeah, I think so too. If Dave can't get it back together for some reason.
Yeah, I think he's going to be good this year. Moving on to the Rona Deutsch Mod Lights. speaking of guys in a hole, I'm tempted to take Josh to win the title, but I'm also tempted to take Brent, and then Tyler's there too. I'm gonna take Brent just because I gotta buy the hype. I gotta drink the Kool-Aid that was sold to us by Dan Curving.
Okay.
I'm gonna take Brent Bigelow to win that championship, but I'm not. I could be swayed. Let's just say that.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna stick with my saying from earlier. Give me Tyler Winger to win the championship this year.
That was the other one that I kept going back to. Is that I'm like, why? I'm trying to come up with reasons why. Why can't Tyler win a championship? Why can't Tyler Winger win that championship?
There's no
And
reason.
I don't have a reason.
Yeah.
My only reason is that Brent Bigelow and Josh Slider exist. Like, that's about it. But we've seen that the Slider Bigelow dominance, I don't want to say it's too early to say it's over because we're in a new year. But from what I saw at the end of the season last year to what we saw now, I don't have the same kind of. I don't feel like what is going to happen is that those two are going to run away with the championship. I just think there's too many guys who have too good of equipment, who will get the right track position on the right night, pick up a win, steal a win, do whatever they need to do. I can't fault Tyler Winger as a pick, brother. And I think that puts you back on the 4 cylinders. I think you have first pick of the 4 cylinders here.
Yeah, 4 cylinders. I'm going to take Alex Riley.
Good pick. Good pick. What, back-to-back titles? Was pretty competitive the last couple of years at Oswego.
Yep.
I think he has 2 separate cars for each track. Their program is pretty stout. The sponsorship, everything pet value-wise, is fully focused on that race car now, as opposed to being a race car and series sponsor. So I kind of hate that you took him. I'm not going to lie. I kind of hate that, but... Well, if you take Alex, who am I going to take? So we had Rob win the first race.
Mm-hmm.
We had Mason Anderson looked bad fast to start the season. But I'm going to take the guy who finished second last year in the title. I'm going to take Kenny Hare, Niagara Falls boy.
Yep.
That 5K, he's consistently put together a good program over the last couple seasons. Kenny was right there, right into the final weekend last year. There's no reason why he can't go ahead and get a win. So that's my pick.
Thanks, solid.
Okay, so let's go over this again here. So we've got you've got Gary Lindbergh, Matteo Panante, Dave Bailey, and Tyler Winger. I'll type them out so we can make. I'll send them to you later so you can make up a little post for us. If you don't mind doing some. Don't mind me putting you to work.
No problem at all.
And Alex Riley. And I've got for championship picks. I've got Justin Sharp. I've got Cody McPherson. I've got Mark Fawcett. I've got Brent Bigelow, and I've got Kenny Hare. And I can't wait to somehow be proven wrong on all 5, and we get some crazy surprise winners.
Watch all 10 picks be wrong.
Somehow, right?
Yeah.
This will be the weirdest year in the history of Merrittville, right? Somehow.
Yeah.
All right. I got some prop bets. I want to finish with this before we get to Cory Turner.
Yep.
Some prop bets for you, Beef. You give me predictions. Gary Lindbergh, under or over 5.5 wins for the modified series this year.
How many races are on the schedule this year?
That's a good question. I want to say I think it's 14 for the modifieds.
14?
I don't have it specifically because I don't know who's off what night or whatever, but I want to say it's around 14.
Gotta be close to 14.
Yeah.
So you're saying over under 5.5?
Yeah.
I'm going under.
Under?
Yep.
I mean, obviously
under,
Mother Nature
but still wins the championship based on consistency.
Yeah, I mean, 5 wins can get it done for sure. And that opens the door for a lot of other drivers to go and get some wins. So I like that. I like that. I'm bullish on Gary having another crazy year, which obviously you got to pick him in our little championship prediction game there. But I think if it was me, I would probably take the over. But I'm the house in this situation, so I don't have to pick. Pete McNell. Over under 1.5 win column total for the modifieds this year. So you think one or none for the Mr. Small Block, eh?
Yep, that would be my guess. I think based off what I saw in the first race.
Yeah, you know what? And the other thing too with Pete is that it kind of usually is. I think 1.5 is a pretty good number for him. Um, besides Gary, the field is just so deep.
Yeah.
Like Brad's going to pick up a couple wins.
Oh,
I feel like he's primed for it.
yeah.
JMF's probably primed for a couple wins. We saw
Freddie.
guys like Shane Pierce break through for a first time win. Like, what can he do in this year?
Yeah.
Nelson Mason, right? He's finally got, a competitive motor to balance with the rest of the crowd and the sail panels. So, yeah, I don't hate that one. How about Fast Freddy? 1.5, 1.5 for Freddie Carlton wins in the modifieds this year.
Give me the over on old Fast Freddie Carlton.
I like it.
I think he bags 2 wins this year. Write it now. Put it in the paper.
I like it. I think he had 3 last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
at least 2,
3.
if not 3. And I believe they were bigger races too. I think.
Yeah.
So Freddie's going to show up for the big ones for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't hate that pick of over. I don't hate that pick at all. I want Cody McPherson 10.5 over under on Sportsman wins.
I gotta smash the under.
Yeah, you think 10.5 is a little too high of the line?
There's too much risk because the Sportsmen have less races, I think, than the modifieds. No?
I think you're right. I know their championship season ends a week earlier in terms of points.
So I'm smashing the under.
The other factor in all of this, and this is a prop we'll get to, but rain could be a factor. Cody can win as many races as he wants, but if
you only
4 or 5 weekends get rained out,
you only have 10 races, you're never gonna hit the over.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty confident they have more than 10 in their schedule, but
you never know.
Probably should have added that up before I made these props, but hey, I'm not sitting here saying I'm a professional booker.
I'm just making money over here.
Yeah, you're making money left, right, and center. Okay, Sportsman Field.
Yeah.
The rest of the Sportsman Field, over under 3.5 wins. Keep in mind, last year, the rest of the field only got 3 wins.
I believe in the field. Give me the over.
I like it. He's smashing the over, folks.
Yeah.
Smashing the over. I love it.
I believe in the field.
Okay, how about let's go with rainouts on the calendar, 3.5.
I think less than 3.5. I think you say maybe 2 to 3.
I feel like it's going to be a dry summer. I could be giving the announcer jinx right now, and somebody's going to go back to this audio in like 4 weeks from now when we've somehow already had 3 rainouts, and everybody's going to give me a hard time about it. But I think it's going to be a good year. I think we're getting a lot of races in at Merrittville this year. Feels like last year was a little brutal.
Yeah.
I think under is the right call there. I like that. And then let's do drivers mathematically alive in the championship for the 4 cylinders on the final night. I want to say last year it was. I know there was Riley and Kenny Hare, and I think there might have been 2 or 3 other cars. Maybe it was just one. But even at Oshweekend, the 4-cylinder division has always been super tight in terms of points battles coming down to the end. So I'm going to say over under 3.5 cars mathematically in the title fight for the final weekend of the 4 cylinders.
I'm going to take the under.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's the reasoning?
Honestly, I don't know. I think it's just a gut feeling, to be honest with you. But, I mean, it really just depends on how everything shakes out, you know? I would just take the under. I think it's very rare to see more than 2 to 3 guys mathematically in the points battle at the end of the year.
Yeah. It is pretty rare, but it feels like, I don't know, I just feel like the window is closing. I think the fields are getting tighter. I think we're starting to see competition start to maybe level out a little bit. I'm more optimistic and bullish across the board. I really think we could be talking about championship fights in all 5 divisions at Merrittville coming down to the end. Except maybe Sportsman, but again, it comes down to what Cody's schedule is like. Maybe he decides to travel. Maybe there's a Dirt Car Sportsman event that clashes where he's going to go and chase that title. I don't know. right? So we'll see how that all plays out. But I appreciate you playing along with the prop bets. I'll come up with some more prop bets when we have to do our Oshweekend season preview.
Yep.
Speaking of Oshweekend, we've got Cory Turner coming up next on the show, on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. A reminder, again, it's at SODS underscore POD, SODS underscore pod, anywhere that you need to find us on social media. And of course, we are on YouTube, Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. Beef, where's everybody find the Dirt Beers podcast?
You can find the Dirt Beers podcast on the Dirt Beers podcast YouTube channel. You can also find us on Instagram at dirt.beers. That's where I do the daily Dirt Beers posts, 6 posts a day. Plus, you can see clips from the episode on our reels. But yeah, thanks everybody for checking it out. And here's Cory Turner.
Appreciate it. One more. Actually, I'm going to get one more plug in here too.
Okay.
For those who don't know Beef, I play in a band. We're called Green White Checkered. I've got physical tickets. We got a show coming up May 9th in Welland. May 9th in Welland. I think that might be the Oshweekend season opener. I'm not 100% sure. It is, right?
Yeah.
So for the folks who are race fans who are not making the trip out to Oshweekend for the season opener, and you want to come see a rock band with a racing theme name, let me know. I'll have tickets at Merrittville Speedway this weekend. They are $20. Come out to Welland. Come out and see this wicked new space. The Bankard House is awesome. I will also have Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast stickers as well for anybody who wants to buy one for their race car and support the show and help us do some traveling this year to cover events north and south of the border. We would appreciate the support with the sticker program. And that is all the housekeeping.
You might see both of us there. I'm maybe planning on being there. Not 100% sure yet. Got to find out what's going on with the girlfriend, but
hell yeah,
I'll bring Dirt Beer stickers. You can see both of us.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I was gonna say you should be. We've got the Spring Sizzler this weekend, so sprint cars are gonna be back at Merrittville Speedways.
Yep.
So we'll see 71 sprint car out. A little bit different, but maybe same result. We'll find that out this weekend. Speaking of sprint cars, let's get to Cory Turner on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. All right, joining me on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show this week, we got Cory Turner. Beef's off. He's in the shop. He's working away on some competition for you, Cory. He's working on, I think he's working on Mike's car tonight, maybe getting some 360 sprint car stuff with the 71 going. But thanks for coming on and doing this with me. And it's been a while. We haven't chatted since 2022. So let's talk a little bit about 2024. What was 2024 like for you and your team, Cory?
2024 was a good year. I'd give it a B or a B plus if we were giving a letter rating. We would have some of the bigger events we didn't run real well. Realized we had some things wrong with our car during those. With the Thunder on the Grand events, we would have loved to have a better showing during those. But other than that, we got out of the gate pretty fast, ran second opening night at Oshweekend, followed it up with, a few more seconds to Dylan Westbrook. And then we were lucky enough to pick up a win at the Gary Cunningham Memorial at Merrittville in June. And then, struggled a little bit in July during the Thunder on the Grand events. Had some more good runs at Merrittville later in the year, another podium in September. And then we had a pretty strong showing at the Nationals too.
So talk to me a little bit about, I guess, how you can find it one weekend and then kind of lose it a little bit in the next month and then kind of find your way back. Because when I looked at your season and when I thought about your season back, looking on the stats, it kind of was one of those things where you guys started out pretty hot. Like you said, you drop off a little bit in July, and then all of a sudden the program comes back. You mentioned a couple things wrong with the race car. What did you learn through those summer months that made you bounce back to end the year with a podium at Merrittville and a strong top 5 showing?
Yeah, you know what? Nothing real serious. These cars, they have a real narrow setup window at times. They're just like big go-karts. You can be real close, but yet real far. I really found something at practice on the Thursday of the Canadian Sprint Car or Northern Sprint Car Nationals now. And, I made us pretty excited. Friday, we were decent, good. And then we're able to sit on the front row of the Nationals on Saturday and end up with a top 5. No cautions in that race. Maybe things end up a little differently. We were on a totally new package compared to what we were been doing, and it just got a little too slick, too late for us there. I knew when we caught lap traffic when we were leading and I was having trouble with them, we were probably in trouble. But no cautions. Maybe things work out differently. Who knows? But yeah, it doesn't take a whole lot with these cars to get off the beaten path, and the competition's very stout anywhere you go, whether it's Oshweekend or with the ESS or the SOS. And you can go from a podium car every night to a 7th or 8th place car every night pretty quickly.
How easy is it to overthink things when it comes to these 360 sprint cars? I'd imagine that when you miss it, or maybe when you're digging a little extra hard to keep up with a guy like Dylan Westbrook, who had such a crazy year last year, um, I guess it must be somewhat easy to maybe just overstep in one direction the wrong way, and then you're chasing it almost weeks, if not months at a time, to get back to where you were.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes you'll go all the way one way, and you'll get to a point where you're like, okay, that setup's it's hit its peak. We're gonna, that's as good as it's gonna get, and it's a 3rd or 4th place car, and then you start chasing it the other way, and sometimes you'll start out at 8th place car, but the potential's there to be better than that. So yeah, it's and the other thing is too, if you can get in a groove and you can get winning and you can be dominant, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's when you're running second, you're always looking for more. You don't want to show up to run second or third. You want to show up to win. So that keeps you chasing as well.
Absolutely. When it comes to your own personal driving style, and what do you look for behind the wheel? What does that feel where you go and you hit hot laps, or you go and you hit your heat race early in the night, and you're like, okay, I've got a piece under me. This is what I'm looking to feel when I sit behind the wheel of the race car.
At Oshweekend, some of my best nights have been nights where I wasn't overly stellar in hot laps. Our win this year at Merrittville, we were quick time in hot laps. Car was locked down. It was really driving off the left rear. We were really like left rudder, as we call it, which means we've got a lot of drive, probably too much drive. So as the track slicks out, the drive will go away and the track will almost come to you. Oshweekend slows down so much in a night from, a low 13 in hot laps to, some nights a high 16, low 17 in the feature that, sometimes you take your hot lap stuff and just, it's good for hot laps. That's all. You got to think about something different for the feature. And you'll see that a lot of guys, they might be half a second, 3/4 of a second off in hot laps, but they might have, 4 or 5 tenths on the field later in the night. So you just got to be fast when it pays.
Yeah, and it's going to be an interesting year, I think, looking ahead to 2025 just a little bit. Cory, how are you feeling with so many, I guess, marquee events that you could go and be a part of? I guess generally it's got to be a great sign for sprint car racing in Southern Ontario.
Oh yeah, hats off to Oshweekend Speedway and their whole staff, with bringing the World of Outlaws back. That's the, and that's not that far away. That's only about a month away.
Mm-hmm.
We're really looking forward to that. Last time the Outlaws were at Oshweekend was 2017. That was the largest crowd they'd ever had in track history, and I guarantee you it'll take hours to get out of that place on the Wednesday and Thursday. We just pray for good weather, and I guess the biggest difference with the Outlaws coming now, they have probably, 15 full-timers at this point. I'm sure a couple will drop off in the next month or so. But, 15 full-timers. Back when the Outlaws would come to Oshweekend yearly, you're lucky if they had 6 to 9 full-time teams. And there's a lot of guys that'll dabble. I know Anthony Macri said on his schedule that he's going to come, and Stuart Friesen will be in a GSR 410. So it'll be a tough field, just with guys that don't necessarily run sprint cars full time or run with the Outlaws full time. And then you have a $5,000 a win show at Oshweekend in July, the Northern Nationals, which pays $20,000. Hopefully that gets bumped up. And then there's good talks with the SOS too. They have increased purses again this year, and anytime you can have increased purses as a racer throughout the field as well as on top, that's every racer's dream, to race for more money.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes it almost that much more worthwhile putting in that effort, and you guys get rewarded for it. When it comes to your own personal 2025 program, what can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect to see out of yourself. Where are you going to be racing? Is the car same partners on the car? What can you tell us about 2025 for Cory Turner?
Same partners on the car. We're going to be back with the Ackland Insurance team, our third season with them. We've had a great run with Nate and his crew and a bunch of our crew that came over. Honestly, myself, I sit in the seat, but I'm such a small part of it. It's marketing partnerships. It's your crew. My dad told me at a young age, you only go as fast as your car will let you. Steve Kinzer can't drive a piece of shit. Steve Kinzer went fast. Steve Kinzer went fast because he had Carl working on it, and then later in his career, Scott Gherkin. Crew is just so important. So important. You need, the smartest guys on your team, the best wrench turners you can find. So we've got Lone Wolf Fireworks back as our primary partner, Mobile One as another primary partner, Village Variety and Gas. And then we've got some new smaller partnerships. I'm just trying to firm up here this week, get the car deckled before Merrittville. But there's not a lot of space open on our car. We're very blessed to have the partnerships that we do. And some of the partners have been with me since I started racing street stock in 2011.
Yeah, it's so awesome to see that those partnerships can be built and then continue on. And you mentioned Merrittville coming up around the corner here. So I would assume it's safe to say you're going for the points at Oshweekend. What about the SOS? Southern Ontario Sprints, you mentioned them, boosting purses more. Is that a tour that you're hoping to make every single show? Or are you going to try to hit like maybe the bigger highlighted events? How do you feel about the Southern Ontario Sprints tour heading into 2025?
Yeah, Oshweekend will be at every show with the SOS. We'll be at the first one at Merrittville. Then we'll see how things go from there. In the last couple of years, we haven't ran all the races. Basically they've kind of changed their purse structure that they're paying more at the races and less of a points fund. So the points fund isn't as big a deal, but if they're gonna pay good money at the races, then you go to all the races. So we haven't confirmed or denied that we're going to run full time, and we'll see how things go after the first one at Merrittville and go from there.
Is there anywhere on the road that you're looking to hit? Maybe stateside? Do you want to grab some ESS starts this year? What beyond Southern Ontario have you talked about or thought about, given the 2025 season's right around the corner?
Yeah, you know what? Last year we didn't do a ton of traveling. We did, we raced every race at Merrittville, every race at Oshweekend. We didn't make it down to Brighton. But the Outlaws are going back to Cornwall this year, so that's one we kind of have circled on our calendar. We also we went to Wheatsport once last year for one of their ESS Speed Week races, the last one on the Sunday. And if you ever get a chance, Wheatsport is, I would say, by far the premier facility in New York State. Lighting's amazing, surface is good, pits are good. It's excellent. I really like racing there. We were lucky enough to make an outlaw show there in 2023. So I'd like to get back to the ESS show there this year, as well as the outlaw show. The only thing is it's pretty hard on my crew. I know last year we crawled into bed about 4:00 in the morning. A lot of my crew guys were up at 6 to go to work. So I'm really, really blessed to have those guys, that and anytime we go on a road trip like that, we have no problem filling the hauler. So I try not to burn those guys out too much. A lot of them have families, full-time jobs, but I'm blessed that they want to go on this ride with me.
Yeah, it's a fun ride, I imagine, to be on it. I know it's tough at times, and we appreciate those crew guys. We appreciate you guys going and making these trips and representing us well outside of our own home tracks here. So I guess looking ahead at the Oshweekend point standings, if that's the main one you're going for, who are you kind of in your head starting to think about who you got to race for this championship? Obviously, Dylan Westbrook is probably the number one at everybody at the top of everybody's list for who's got the target on their back. But more and more, it seems like the 360 class is getting deeper and deeper and deeper in terms of not just top 5 contenders, but title contenders and race winning contenders each week.
Yeah, you know what? There's probably 5 to 10 guys that could win that title. The thing about the Oshweekend points is there's not a lot of races, so it really it'd be different if it was like an outlaw point title where you have, 75, 80 races. Oshweekend points is usually about 12 to 13 races by the time you factor in rainouts or stuff like that. So, obviously Dylan, he's won 3 or 4 titles. Mike Bowman for sure. The Nitro 54 team will be tough. Nick Sheridan really picked up his game at the end of last year. Yeah, GSR cars will be tough as well. It's really pretty wide open. It's going to be how the track goes. Are we going to get hammered down racetracks, with a low curb, or are we going to have slick, no cushion racetracks? And different tracks favor different guys.
What's your, I guess, favorite track? The one that's going to be the one that's most favorable to your program?
I like Oshweekend, and I really like Merrittville too. I grew up at Merrittville, so I just even when I ran street stock there, I could always just felt like home. The lights. I don't know. I like racing under the lights at Merrittville. There's no, I get an extra pep in my step when we go to Merrittville because that's that's home. I stood in Victory Lane, with my uncle there and my grandfather and my dad. So I really like to go there, and I make sure we definitely have all our I's dotted and our T's crossed. Oshweekend, it's probably the capital of sprint car racing in Canada. How far the 360 divisions come in 15 years there is crazy. When my dad first started racing sprint cars there in 2010, there was, a few guys with decent equipment. Now it's, there's a field full of great equipment. So it's, basically, we want to, and usually if you can run good at Oshweekend, it'll translate to Merrittville. So if you can figure your stuff out one place, you're going to be good both places.
That's interesting that you say that. I don't know if I've ever really heard too many people say that in the 360 cars. And when I sit there and I think about Merrittville, I always think of it as such a unique enigma of a racetrack, the D-shaped oval, tricky turn 4. But what do you find? Is it the surface? What about Oshweekend and Merrittville make those two tracks and the performance transferable?
My grandfather always told my dad when he started racing, he says, if you can run good at Merrittville, you will run good anywhere. Just the two opposite ends. Turn 3, obviously you try to set the car high, head for the bottom. I found the Merrittville surface a lot different last year. It was really loose, didn't really like, it got slick, but not like black shiny slick like it did in years past. It's almost I think they resurfaced, and it's a little bit different now. Still races great. It's just a little bit different.
Yeah, a little bit different. I noticed that too. Especially you mentioned that it doesn't black over the same way it did
Yeah.
last year. I don't know if it was just the added weather too. I mean, it felt like rain. I don't know what it was like Friday nights for Oshweekend, but it felt like every other Saturday was a rain out for a hot second there, especially early in the year at Merrittville. In terms of you mentioned going back a couple questions, you mentioned is Oshweekend going to be is there going to be a cushion? Is it going to be slick? What surface at Oshweekend do you want to see as a driver? Which surface do you think lends itself to you having the best chance to capitalize?
Yeah, when we were lucky enough to win the championship a few years back, the tracks were slick to no cushion. So I want something like that. That really makes you really makes you get your program together, make sure your car's working, because there's not much to do when the track gets to 17 and a half seconds. If your car's not good, you're not good. That's just it. You can't drive harder. You can't drive different. You're at the mercy of your car. That being said, as long as you have a good car, then that's a hot ticket. We're going to a different tire in July that's going to be narrower and harder. So that's going to be a huge adjustment as well, especially on the slick tracks.
And you mentioned that is that a personal team choice, or is that a rule change that the track has opted for the 360s?
Yeah, that's a rule change, just because Hoosier tires are going to no longer offer like the big wide Hoosier HTC right rear, they call it. They're going to make a new right rear that's narrower and harder, basically like the medium that the ASCS National Tour would run.
Okay. So how do you anticipate that changing maybe the racing that fans might see? Is it too early to say? What's your prediction on how that might change things?
I think it's going to make the setup window a lot narrower. So I think you're going to see some guys be really, really good, and some guys that were good before, not so good. So, I mean, can a guy win from 16th? Yes. I think it'll help the racing because there won't be as much forgiveness setup wise. So if you're on that night, you're gonna haul ass to the front. If you're not, you're gonna drop like an anchor.
That's super interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up because that was one of those things that I'm sure maybe I just missed it on the G-Force broadcast or something that they haven't talked about yet. But I'm glad that you brought that up. And it's going to be interesting to watch. And that's just another one of those things where I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't feel like the 360 class has had a ton of rule changes. Maybe in terms of like how you guys race, in terms of, different restart procedures and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel like the cars have evolved too much in the last few years. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, you know what? Sprint cars. I mean, if you had good components on a car, you could win with a frame that was 15 years old.
Hmm.
I'm not kidding. Yeah, we've had a lot of procedural changes, not so much rule changes. There's not really much like the standard 360 ASCS rulebook is pretty standard from here to California, which is good because basically, other than a tire, and now we're all going to be on the same tire, you can pretty much go anywhere and race, which makes it awesome if you want to travel.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also hopefully will encourage some guys to think about making the trip up here. Obviously, the Outlaws, there's going to be a big draw for that, but even getting some more invaders in for the events like the Northern Sprint Car Nationals, it would be great to see how you guys measure up. That's a great thing that we've seen over the last few years is, when I first started in the sport in terms of calling it and covering it, Oshweekend was like, it was a locals track, but then as soon as it got around to that Northern Sprint Car National weekend, there would be somebody coming up and taking it to you guys, and to the point where we had Clinton on the show a couple weeks ago live from Motorama, and he was talking about and Glenn mentioned it as well that you used to have a fastest Canadian. Well, you don't really need that anymore because the Canadians are just as fast, if not faster, than the guys who are trying to come up here and take our crown.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. When my dad started racing sprint cars back 2010, I can remember in 2012 they had 78 cars at the nationals, and the tracks at Oshweekend then. Well, first of all, they didn't have a crate sprint car division, so there was fewer mini stocks and fewer street stocks. So they had a 4 division class back then, and the bombers racing the infield, so they weren't really on the track. The moisture hung around in the track a lot longer. Like you rarely got a really slick night for a regular night at Oshweekend. Now there's just so many cars, and they've really narrowed up the track, so there's more traffic, on a smaller space, and now it's really hard for them to try to keep moisture in it. You'll get weeks that rain and it's hammered down all night, but not as many nights as we used to. So the locals used to show up to the Northern Nationals by Saturday. It was slick and hot laps, and a lot of them hadn't seen that track all year.
Mm.
Well, the New York guys race on that, night in, night out. You go to Fulton or Brewerton or Wheatsport, it's black and hot laps, and they would really hand it to us. My first nationals, we made the A main. I think we had 3 locals in it. Last year I would say half the field was locals, probably 15 to 18 locals. But that being said, the race used to pay U.S. funds. It pays Canadian. Americans usually aren't interested in Canadian money. The border poses a lot of issues, so it's going to take a lot of promoting to try to get guys to come back, especially back in the day. A lot of those guys would make the show, and now some of the you know mediocre guys with the GLSS or ESS don't make the show now. So it doesn't, that show pays awesome money to start, but it does not pay well if you don't make the show. So
Yeah.
that's one of those deals too.
So, looking ahead to that World of Outlaws trip, because that's going to be the big one where we do expect to see some. Obviously, we have the regulars on that tour coming up, as well as some others that have indicated it. For yourself, are you going to be attempting that event with a 360 motor, or will you guys have a 410 for that?
We as long as it lives through practice, we will have a 410.
Nice. Okay. Good to
Yeah.
know. That makes this question a little bit more interesting then. I'm going to give you 2 options. I'm going to give you a podium guaranteed at the Northern Sprint Car Nationals to end the season, or you just make the show for the World of Outlaws. Which would you take, Cory?
Podium at the Northern Nationals.
No, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I like that. I didn't necessarily think that wouldn't be your pick, but I think it's a good indication for local fans that Northern Sprint Car Nationals deal is a very important deal to you guys as drivers.
Yeah, that's the one I have circled on my calendar every year. From a personal standpoint, we've pretty much done everything on that night other than win the A main. So it only comes once a year, and we get pretty revved up over it. The Outlaw Show, Outlaw Show is just a regular Outlaw Show. It's not Knoxville, it's not Eldora, or that Northern Nationals. That's a local around here is Daytona 500.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I appreciate you taking some time out to join us. I want to talk a little, I guess, non-racing things. What's going on in your life that you want to keep the people updated on? How has the off season been for you?
Yeah, no, it's been a good off season. We've been working hard in the shop. Working hard, securing marketing partnerships. Actually, my wife's expecting our second child in a couple months. So that's pretty exciting as well. Racing with children is definitely more difficult than racing prior to children, but it's fun all the same.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations. It's I didn't hear that, so super excited to hear that for you. Super proud that you had our logo up on the race car last year. Sorry it took you so long. It took us so long to catch up with you. I noticed it. I think I first saw it on the wing at the Gary Cunningham, and I was like, okay, I got to track Cory down. And then I think we got to the last SOS race at Merrittville, and I was like, damn it, I still haven't had Cory on the show. So I appreciate your patience and making a trip back on for the first time since 2022. And wish you all the best in 2025, man. And thanks for doing this.
Hey, no problem. No, I love what you guys are doing with the Southern Ontario Dirt Show, and even the Dirt Beers podcast is great too. I watched the Clinton Boyles one the other day. Great stories. Yeah, I've if you ever want to have me back on, we've got some pretty good stories too. They're pretty funny. So
absolutely, I definitely foresee you as a fairly regular guest, and I hope we're talking a lot on the front stretch this year.
Sounds good. No, I looking forward to get back to Merrittville, and I hope we have many conversations out there on the front stretch.
Absolutely. There he is, Cory Turner, joining me this week on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast.